Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving yourself time to be here and giving us your time and letting us share the space with you. Quick, who am I? I'm Jonathan. I use he/they pronouns. I'm a dad, father of a teenager. Um, we live in Portland, Oregon. You can go ahead and go to the slide, the next slide, Liara. Thank you. And I'm joined this morning by my fellows, Claudia and Jennifer, who you'll get to meet in a moment. And so grateful to share this time with them. Just feel so honored to participate in this project together. Before we dive too deep into our presentation, and Liara, I didn't know you were going to be starting with words, which I love, which is good. I want you to be thinking about another word. I want you to be thinking about a word that has maybe carried you, or maybe you found as a companion through a really difficult time, a difficult day. If you're a school crisis leader, community leader, maybe it's been like just a single thing, like, that may not have been able to make sense of the moment, but it made sense for you in that moment and helped to carry you. And I think words are really powerful in that way. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. A quote here from Tracy Chapman: "There's power in words. There's power in being able to explain and describe and articulate what you know and feel and believe about the world and about yourself." So I want you to think of a word that may have carried you through a moment. I want you to hold it. Don't do anything with it yet. Don't throw it in the chat thread yet. We'll give you a chance to do the waterfall here in a few moments. But just think of a word that may have carried you through a day, a moment, a year. Can be a power word. It can be anything. A little bit about how I got into the work of postvention and school crisis between the years of 2019 and 2024. I got into the work by accident. I had applied for a state coordinator suicide prevention job, and with the year that I had just had, I felt like I needed something a little different, maybe not as direct service related. And so I applied for a job, and they responded with an offer of another job that hadn't been listed. And it was to be the coordinator for a statewide contract for school crisis recovery. And I'm sorry, it sounds really similar. Suicide rapid response coordinator, not school crisis. Sorry. Suicide rapid response, partnering with the state of Oregon. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. No idea what was going to happen in the years ahead. Starting in December of 2019, we all know what happened in 2020. And I learned very quickly, without knowing that there was a word for it, I learned really quickly what polycrisis was, what it was to be in polycrisis. Had the organization I worked for knew the year that I had prior to hiring, they may not have offered me the job that they had offered me, but I took it on. And it was working with communities, anywhere from the families, dealing with funeral directors, and knowing like what to do to rapid clean up, or to working with a school, holding listening space for school administration, leaders, students, and helping to coordinate responses. And it was a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of emotionally heavy lifting. And I believe it was in 2023 that I learned about school crisis recovery and renewal. And that was like a lifesaver for me, because I definitely was very quickly on the road to burnout myself. And but it was through that I learned, again, I didn't have the words for it, but not only did I learn about polycrisis, but I also learned about polygrieving, grieving multiple things with many others who are also grieving. And I've also learned about polyhealing. And that's what this space has been for me, and this journey with you all. And I love it. And I love that if you attach the word poly to any word, it can just make it that much more magical. And so there are power in words, and words are incredible. And we started this project. What we wanted to do is we wanted to interview school administrators and crisis leaders. And we didn't know about leading in, leading out. We didn't know about the work that had been done by our former fellows. And so Claudia, Jennifer, and I were linked together because we had shared similar ideas. We had either been like had our own lived experience of leading crisis, communities in crisis, schools in crisis, or supporting the leaders that were navigating community crisis. And we wanted to know like what would be helpful for them in that moment. What would be helpful for them? Not the policies, not the procedures. There's a lot of that. And there's enough of that. But what could be helpful? Something that they, like maybe even tangible, something they could just stick in their pocket and just carry with them as they're walking down the halls, and they could just like have as a reminder. Or maybe a song that they could like listen to that could give them hope, or a little listening or a little video. And so we were given the opportunity to read the a proof of the leaning in and leading out, and provide some feedback on that project. And so we pivoted from going and doing the interviews ourselves to being able to review the interviews that had been done last year by fellows, and then we got to together read that and take that information and decide what then we wanted to do. So that informed this idea um, of in the moment. And so you'll have the opportunity to look at that project and learn more from Claudia and Jennifer about what that project looks like and what we came up with. And I will pass it on. Oh, and I will just quickly say before passing on to Claudia that what we learned and what we lived and what we learned from our own lived experience and others was that there's a lot of isolation. And there's a lot of isolation for being that person that has to navigate school crisis. You're, in a situation of having to make a decision that's not going to make everybody happy, and yet you have to try to power through. And you may not be able to go home and talk to your partner about what's going on because it might be private information. And so oftentimes school crisis leaders have to hold things that are really difficult and alone. And so what is something tangible that could be like a sidekick or a companion that can be with them in those moments of isolation as they go through the day or the following days and weeks in the aftermath of a school crisis. And with that, I will hand it over to Claudia.
Actually, right before we go to Claudia, I just want to pause. There is background noise coming from someone, and so I've tried to go through and make sure that everyone's muted, but if you're not muted except for Claudia, please mute yourself, and we can move the mic to Claudia. Okay, go for it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Leora. Leora, do you mind dropping the link to our guide? I see the leaning in and leaning out, but that way people can start perusing it while I'm talking. So, first of all, I just want to say that this work is so important, and I'm so grateful to the universe for bringing all of us together today. It's no accident that back in 2012 I met Dr. Wong. Thanks for being here, Marlene. And she inspired myself and Trish Hansen, who's also in the room, to open a small little school in South Central Los Angeles and really put a lot of what we've learned about into action. During that time, I also met Leora. Thanks, Leora, for always supporting us. She wrote us the most amazing, like, handwritten letter after one of our students tragically died. And I just need to honor those moments because they really kicked off this work, and again, the universe being in place. Also, Cynthia Vega's in the room. She was the principal who hired me in my current position, and she was a fellow last year, and she helped to write the Leaning In document that we were also inspired by. So thank you, Cynthia, for being here today as well. I also feel like the universe really connected Jennifer, Jonathan, and I. It's been such an awesome experience. We just started working together, even though we've been in the fellowship since August last month. And Jonathan and I already met in person. And so it's just been like these beautiful connections. What's moving about this work too is all of the kinship and the community that has to come into play when we have school leaders that experience crises. So in the room today too is my mom, my partner, my siblings, my cousin, my family, and also my chosen family. So I have childhood friends in here. We have college friends. My high school teachers are here, and definitely coworkers who've walked this path with me for the last 23 years in this work of education. And I just feel that what you'll see in the guide that we worked on, a word a day, is that what's impactful about this capstone, this project, is that even though Jennifer, Jonathan, and I, and all the other fellows, and I'm guessing everybody in this space right now, is surrounded by family, by community, are in kinship. When you are in a moment of crisis, especially in a school setting, you feel very isolated. Like Jonathan said, it's so isolating. And so we created this guide, particularly to help you when you are feeling in that moment, just like, what the hell do I do right now? How am I going to handle this very difficult situation? That you could just pick this up and go through the words. And we really were deliberate in how we structured kind of the day by day. So we thought about, okay, day one, when you're dealing with the school crisis, you're probably handling, right? You are just in the moment, you're trying to take care of things, and then as the days progress, you're going to start to feel different things. And so we structured it very deliberately, but we also understand that everybody's experience is different. And so you may be in day 5 of the crisis and be feeling something completely different than what we thought, but the guide is there to help you out. And then the most beautiful thing I think that happened is we all agreed that our last page should be like your word, because there's 3 of us, 3 of our perspectives. But obviously, you also have some input in this. So please use this guide when you feel isolated or alone. And lastly, I think there's so many things that we learned during this fellowship, but I think something that's really gonna linger for me is that all of us, each of us in this space, have experienced some sort of crisis, whether it's working at schools or in our lives, something that we just feel like, my goodness, how am I gonna survive this? How am I going to come back from this? And just please remember that we're all capable of healing, um, especially when we're in kinship, when we're in community. We're all capable of it. Don't give up, keep going. Our young people need us, especially during this time. And so I'm just so happy that we're in this space together. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Claudia and Jonathan, for sharing your experiences and laying the groundwork. And also thank you to Leora for, helping guide us in our project throughout this time, along with leading the entire fellowship. We really appreciate all that you've done and your guidance of right size this, because we all started with these grandiose ideas and things that we thought we were going to be able to accomplish. And thankfully, we heeded your advice, and it turned out to be a wonderful project and experience because it was right-sized. And so that was a big contributing factor. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. That'd be great. I think for me, when I first encountered the School Crisis Recovery and Renewal Project, I had signed up for a webinar. I don't remember exactly how I came across it. It probably showed up in Facebook or something like that. And luckily, the timing was such that I could do it after my workday had finished, because I'm in the Central Time Zone and a lot of things are based in the Pacific Time Zone. And so that's worked out really well. And I remember like laying on the floor at my house. I'd gotten to go home so I wouldn't be interrupted, and participating in this webinar. And I don't quite remember exactly what I envisioned it to be, but what it ended up being was, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like for me. I mean, I had like goosebumps the whole time. I think I went back to work the next day and probably shared with my supervisor something like, this was for us. It was so zen, and you felt really heard and understood. And so this process as the fellowship has been really impactful for me, and I think somewhat transformational in kind of trying to make those slow and gradual pivots to knowing that it's okay to show some vulnerability at times and to not keep it all together. which is really hard to do. And I think if you explore the leaning in and leading out, that's one of the first things that was identified through the interviews, is that there's a concern for expressing your vulnerability because people don't feel safe. And I think that's even more perpetuated, not just within, district dynamics, but also in just educational dynamics these days. And with all of the, intertwining of politics and education and everything. And so, as Jonathan and Claudia have both spoken to, it can be really isolating, or where you just are like, it is hard to explain what you go through when you lead and live in the world of crisis work. And so, as I was working through the words that I was compiling resources for, as well as hearing from Jonathan and Claudia, I found words that I was drawn to, and I think of the words we included, I think holding, the concept of holding space for others and being okay in the awkward and in the discomfort, and then also learning to more also hold space for myself. And so I feel like that's kind of a one that comes a little bit easier for me. But then at the same time, I know I have work to do. I probably need to work a little bit more in the area of metabolizing and, of how you release all of that once you're in it, because sometimes it is so rapid that you don't get much process time or metabolization time in between or at the end of each day. And so I think that is something that is really meaningful to me. And so, as you think about, and I'm going to bring us back to the question that Jonathan asked when we first started, of what is a single word which has stuck with you, a kind of an inspirational companion, and that has helped to empower you through a challenging moment or season. And we don't want you to feel constrained to like, you have to use a word that you've seen in the guide or anything. This could be any word that is powerful for you. And we'd love to start our discussion and question and answer with a chat waterfall of your words. And so if you would take a minute and drop your word into the chat, we would love to see what has inspired you along the way. Patience, change, grace, trust, bravery, space, breathing, passion, dignity, breathing, yeah, witness, community, future. That's wonderful. So we'd love to open it up if you all would like to share a little bit about how that word has supported you or empowered you, or we would love to answer questions, or here's any thoughts that you have. Leora, I'll let you kind of help us in moderating that.
Yeah, I'm going to bring us to your actual guide, and I think it would be really helpful if Jonathan, Claudia, or Jennifer, you can offer the like, what is the gift that you've created for us, and what are you hoping for how it lands and who it's for? So
Yeah,
that we
and
can,
I
yeah.
think we really focused initially on school administrators. There are quite a few supports out there for teachers and different pieces of the community, but the administrators, they have the weight of the whole thing on their shoulders. And like Jonathan and Claudia spoke about, is that is a heavy thing to do. And so I think somewhat we wanted to affirm that like what you are experiencing in the moment is authentic, it is okay, it is part of the process, even when it's uncomfortable. And yet at the same time, Leora, I wrote down, what you said at the beginning of the network of practice is that, this is hard. I am human and I'm humanizing the hard. And I think that for me, I was like, that's it. So Claudia, Jonathan, what are your thoughts?
I remember feeling a little inspired by, and I don't know if anybody here does or has once upon a time in their life done like morning devotions, and sometimes it was just like a reflection, a story or something that kind of like helped set for the day. And so that was was a little bit of I know like my inspiration. But there's just something about the word. It's just like, if we could just like give a word and then just a little reflection about that. Some of these have links to, like I said, in music or a video or prompts of a meditation or a breathing exercise that you might want to try, or just some ideas. But really, it's to be interactive. It's to be used however the user wants to use it. And then we got stuck with 9 words, and we wanted 10 because our thought was, maybe two weeks of school days of worth of words. So we were thinking like 10 words, and we all 3 of us had the idea of what if we allow the last page for them to come up with their own word. Like, what is a word that inspires you through this time, and do a little bit of journaling. But again, use this how you want. It's like a half pager in PDF, can be printed. And yeah, that's where we're at. Feel free to give feedback to it. Love to hear your thoughts. And shout out to Jennifer too, for the lead Canva designer on this as well.
It's so beautiful, Jennifer.
And I think too, we want people to be able to, through maybe having that confirmation of the experience in the midst of the crisis, it better sets you up for that recovery and renewal process. I know that each time I participate in guiding a school through a crisis moment, it is so different in every experience. And there are many times when I have felt frustrated with myself for not thinking of all the parts, or of, kind of realizing like, man, I kind of misstepped there for a minute. And I think to, give yourself permission that it's going to be different, and different words are going to arise at different times. So Claudia, what would you like to share?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with everything that's been said. In particular, I know in my family, music is everything to us. My brother, DJ Sensual, is in the room. And this is just random, but during the pandemic, he started DJing on Twitch, and it just helped my family and our community to not um, feel so depressed about everything that was going on. And so when we started the work, I thought, you know what, I'm going to include some playlists in here, because music is always what I've turned to in really difficult times. And the playlists are what's the word? You can add songs. So the ones that we started with were actually inspired by 5 principal friends that I still go to brunch with, and we all hang out. We're all women, and some of them are still principals, some of them are not, like myself, but we still have this very tight bond in this tight community. And so I asked them, when you're feeling, like you want to be in, like what says here, in grounding, what songs come to you? And so you'll see there's like an array of genres of interest, right? And so please, you continue to add to this playlist so that it just becomes this beautiful shared resource for everybody.
We're going to open it up in a moment. I want to add, as a witness of the 3 of your journeys, we've got Jennifer in Oklahoma, we have Jonathan in Oregon, we have Claudia in California. I just think it's such a powerful testimony to both the shared and unique experiences that we have as school leaders. And all of you, the 3 of you, hold really different roles in your professional lives and have held. And again, what is powerful for folks in the room to hear is that this is Claudia, Jennifer, and Jonathan's kind of metabolizing of last year's fellows' interviews with school crisis leaders, right? Where we then produced this 40 to 60 page document. And in a conversation with Claudia, Jennifer, and Jonathan, we said, well, okay, when you are in the midst of it, you don't have time to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna sit down and read a 60-page document right now. Cynthia's laughing as one of the authors, right? We don't have it. We have sometimes just a word that has to remind us of our dignity and of our humanity and of our belonging and of our human experience. And so this is a beautiful conversation between multiple school leaders who are in text with each other, and then with you and your colleagues. And so I want to offer that, that feels incredibly profound to even see how you thought about what we need when we have time and what we need when we may not have as much, and how we can still have moments to recover and renew as leaders.